Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight I'm joined by Jennifer, who's been away for a little while.
I'm back.
That's right. And Chris, how are you doing?
I'm good here.
Tonight's episode, this month's episode, we are reading Jen's pick. Like we've been talking about, we've kind of moved to this. And I guess I need to talk to everyone, figure out if we're going to keep doing it this way. Everyone picks a book, and we just kind of flow through them that way. And this is Jennifer's pick. This book is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Jen, why did you pick this book?
Well, I don't know if you guys know this, am a bit of an environmentalist, and this book has been recommended to me numerous times, and also just pops up in your suggestions, because the algorithms know what you like. And so, yeah, I've been wanting to read it for a long time, and then when I had the power to decree what everyone should read this month, I thought this is a good excuse to actually read something I've been needing to read for a while. And so, yeah, I've heard that it's it's great, not only about the environment, but it talks about indigenous knowledge, and that's something I've also wanted to learn a lot more about. And I thought it was well, I know we'll get into this, but I thought it lived up to expectations for sure.
So do I need to put this on the Sustainably Geeky feed as well? Just slip it in there as a read, or you just going to point people to come listen to it here? So
I suggested it in the last episode, and I'll just send them over this way for this as well.
Gotcha. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started as we usually do. Just kind of give our quick introductory thoughts on it. I take it from your wanting and your giddiness that you did enjoy this book.
Yeah, I really liked it. And the author also narrates it. And as we talked about pre-show, her voice is melodic. So that just really added to it. But yeah, I really liked it. And I liked how it kind of married science and sustainability and showed that they're not exclusive, that they're, actually complementary. And we need to start thinking more that way about life in general. So,
Chris, what were your thoughts?
So I have heard about this book too throughout the years, and just never thought about it. And then when Jen suggested, I'm like, okay, good excuse to read it. And I really liked it. I like that she read it. She has a very melodic voice. I love that she is a botanist, but she's also very passionate about her heritage. She's a Potawatomi First Nation person. And I like how she marries the two together. It's not just about one or the other. And this term that she used, I just love. It's called indigenous science. I just loved that. It was just this wonderful thing. And she mentioned one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. His name was Thomas Berry. And he was a priest. She called him an eco-theologian, which I thought was pretty cool. I'd never heard that term before. And he believed that in order for the world to keep going and us to thrive, much like Robin says, we need to have both the spiritual side of things and science. You can't do one without the other if we're going to make it through this. But it was just really poetic. I just found it really, really poetic. She's a fantastic writer. Fantastic writer. And the whole entire time I was thinking about this, I'm like, oh, this is a million times better than Sarah Wilson's book.
Aww.
I did not like her book, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, this is why. It's because Robin is an actual scientist in the field of environmental sciences. Like she has this knowledge, and she also has this huge spiritual side to her that she marries very well together. And I feel like Sarah's book kind of just missed that mark. But I love it. Pardon?
Well, I was going to say, on that note, I think she was just really good at pulling personal stories and experiences and making her scientific points, or even vice versa. Like, she knew when to, pull what stories and put them together. Yeah. Whereas other books kind of seem to just throw stories in there for the sake of it and
for the sake of story. Yeah, like it flowed. It's a meaty book. Like, it's dense. Like, it's for audiobook, it's 16 hours. It's like no joke. But so it's meaty. And I found myself kind of near the end being like, is this the end yet? Is this just because my attention was starting to wane? Yeah. But it's a meaty book. And I feel like it's something that should be part of curriculum if students are going into any kind of sciences like biology, environmental sciences, anything like that. This should sort of be required reading because she talks so much about the Indigenous science and the Indigenous spirituality of it all and how they need to work together. Eugene?
Yes.
Hi.
Okay, so this is definitely not my normal run of book, which I mean, let's be honest. One of the reasons we wanted to start this show was not only to talk about the books that we did like in general, but was also, at least for me, was also to help branch out and find different things. So yeah, this is not a book I would have normally picked up. Um, I, I completely agree. I think her reading it, she does have a good voice. She does have a good um, rhythm of reading. It is very soothing to hear her read, which that's not always the case on a lot of people. I mean, I've listened to books where Stephen King reads it, and while he does an okay job, he's definitely not the best reader. Although I've kind of married his voice to those certain books when I go back and listen to them. But anyway, I also completely agree that her use of weaving personal stories and her heritage into the points that she's trying to make, she does a good job of that. I don't know if she's just naturally good at it or she had a really good editor. Because I agree, listening to some books when people are trying to make a point on something they're talking about, sometimes it's jarring. It's just like, that didn't really fit the way I think you thought it fit. So um like I said, I will say about halfway through the book, I was just like, man, this is a lot. This is a lot going on. And I did crack a smile because the whole time I thought, I bet Jennifer's just like reading this and just like so excited and happy
Yeah.
and everything. And that made me happy with, the thought that you probably really enjoyed this. So, um,
Yeah. I listened to the first half of it while I was hiking in
mhm,
the woods in Ireland and like literally just connecting with nature, at the highest level I could. So for
right.
me it was like it just enhanced the experience, but yeah, it was a very long book and I did kind of take a break, and when I came back to it was like, okay, I'm ready to get back into it because it was, a lot at once. I had to pace myself.
Yeah. Um, well, let's kind of get into it. So the book is I I guess you'd say kind of her personal story because there's a lot of personal stories in it. Um, and like Chris said, she is a Native American and she is going at it from that stance. Even though when it starts out, it's like she was very divorced from her heritage just because of the things that happened to her father. And as she's grown up, she's come to incorporate that more into her life, and now it is a great part of her life. Um, and so it's the story. It's her story growing up. It's her story how what she does with her life. Um, working to help, protect the environment, but also how her culture and how its reverence for nature, flows into that. Which is one of the first things you kind of brought it up, and that's one of the first things I want to say. Um, the first thing that really kind of stuck out in this book to me was there's a scene where she's talking about she's basically wanting to get into college, and she goes in and she's talking to the dean, and she's like, I've got this whole thing laid out, and she has this plan, and she's speaking from the heart, and she's just waiting to be fully accepted and get started in this program and be awesome. And they're just kind of like, yeah, that's not really what being a botanist is about. Like, we're like, defining what plants are and what their makeup is and how we classify them, and none of the natural touchy feely stuff you're talking about. And I was just like, wow, what a douche. Like, I just
Crushed
wanted
her
to reach.
dreams.
I was really hoping. Granted, I try to be kind of hopeful on some of this stuff, so I was really hoping it was going to be the opposite. I was hoping it was going to be she found her spot and it was great and everything, and it didn't turn out to be that way. And I'm just like, wow, that sucks. So, and it kind of, and unfortunately, she ran into that several other times throughout the book, where um, there was some talking about I think it was later on where they're talking about studying sweetgrass, and how it grows and where and everything. And they're just like, why? Like, it's not, we don't use it for, necessarily medicine or, anything industrial or whatever. Why would we put all this time, energy, and effort into studying this plant that for modern culture apparently doesn't really matter? So, but has a deep meaning for her culture. So, I'm definitely the wrong person to lead this. So if either one of y'all want to take the lead on this, by all means do.
What I thought as she was kind of talking through that experience of applying for school and kind of getting her the light kind of dimmed out of her a little bit at the beginning when she was so hopeful and she was all about the beauty and the art of the science. She was also, interested in the science, but she didn't see them as exclusive, and they kind of like forced that into her. And it kind of made me think about, like, there's a big push for STEM, lately, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But there's also been a push for STEAM, which is adding the art back into that, because I think people are starting to realize, like, they're stronger together and you can't just have science, science, science. You also need to kind of bring in the arts component and let that inform what you do. Like, using both sides of your brain, your creative and your logical, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's just another testament to why that's so important. This is a great example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You can like both.
Yes.
Oh, well, I was literally, as you're talking about that. I don't know how much I've talked about it on this show. I'm the team lead for the Austin area Ghostbusters, and one of the groups that we're a cosplay group that gets together and do cons and parades and stuff like that, and then we usually work with a charity to try to raise money. The latest charity that we've worked with is a charity here in Austin called Girl Start, and they're specifically trying to get young ladies into STEM things. I think they've expanded it to STEAM as well. But the whole time you're saying that, and I'm thinking, yeah, absolutely, because like the reason why we would get people into this is because, hey, I made a proton pack. This is a cool, essentially, piece of art, and you want to know how it's made. Well, then that's how you get into the STEM part of it or whatever. So just there are people out there that I'm sure absolutely love and adore learning about science and math and everything just for their pure purpose of learning about it. But I'm not one of those people. Like, I have to have it applied some way, and art is one of the big ways of doing that. Or it's, I'm going to learn about this to get to this other goal. So I completely agree with you on that. And like I said, when that part of the book came up, I was just like, and I agree that she definitely seemed like the light kind of went out of her a little bit. And unfortunately, I think that happens a lot in different, academic areas, and not even, I mean, completely different things. Someone goes into something, they're like, this is what I want to learn about, and I want to do this as a living, or, this is my passion or whatever. And unfortunately, there's just, people that are high up in academic areas that just kind of crush that out of them.
But I'm glad she found it again, like she came back to it, and, also found her heritage and the beauty in that, and reconnected with all of that, because it seemed like she realized how much she needed it and how much she missed it. So it gave me hope.
Yeah. Chris, anything in particular that stood out to you?
It's got a vacuum situation happening. So what stood out to me, that just the passion she had for, it seems like she's a very deeply passionate person about the things that she loves. So she really loves science, but she also really loves the spiritual side of her culture and what that all means and how you can put it together. She's also a mother. She has 2 children. I love her kids' names. I thought they were pretty cool. Lyndon and Larkin. I like how she wove them into that too. And because as a parent, Logan and I have had these talks, because it's her generation that's really going to have to kind of deal with the
fix our mess
out of all of this. They're getting the brunt of it, right? We're seeing it, but they're the ones that are growing up in it. And she wants to have kids, but it's stressful for her. And what do you do when you see climate change and all this? Like, how do you reconcile the two? Like, bringing a kid in, and them going to have to deal with all this and stuff. So her being a mom and trying to instill how important, but not like shoving it down their throat, but like just showing them, making it fun, making it part of their, like growing a garden. And they had a pond at one of their places, and just, you know,
The ponds.
the pond. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that pond would be cool. But
Sounded like so much work.
That's why.
Yeah, I don't think I do all that work for a freaking
Oh
pond.
God.
But I'm also not that. I'm not that stubborn either. I feel like that's like a stubborn trait that she's got. Like, I will not. This will not defeat me. But that woven in there of her being a mother, and I could relate a lot to that. Yeah, she just seems like a really cool lady, and I just loved how she talked about, because when I did a couple of courses in 2020, and it really talked about how the Christian Genesis story has no blueprints after that. There's nothing in the Bible that says this is how you live with the land, this is how you take care of it. She speaks a lot about reciprocity, about the give and take of nature and humans, and and in a lot of indigenous cultures, it's you only take 50%. You only take what you need. You don't take anything more than that, because there's other things out here that need it too. It's not just you. But in a Christian Bible story, it's very much the land will provide for you. So whatever you need, you can take as much as you want, because it'll always be readily available. But the problem is that's not the case. And then when you have colonizers coming over, and they're seeing these other people living in a very harmonious way, but it looks messy or it doesn't look organized, they just assume they don't know what they're doing. So we're going to come and fix it all and save you guys, and you should
take all the stuff you're wasting.
Yes,
letting it go to waste.
You're leaving all this behind when you can gather it all up. And don't you want more? And aren't you afraid that it's not going to be there anymore or whatever? You got to stock it and hoard it. And realizing that that's not that the indigenous beliefs have a universal story. They have, she calls it the instructions of how to live within the land, because it's here for all living beings. It's not just humans exclusively. So it's deep rooted in their culture of how to take care of the land, and being appreciative of everything that it gives you, and how to appreciate taking a life, like an animal or a plant or whatever, but using everything that goes with that, and nothing going to waste, and just the honoring of land, I just think is missing a lot in regular everyday belief, because North America was found on Christian Judeo beliefs, right? Like, and it's still very deep rooted, like it's God and country, and in God we trust, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, that's great, but there's no universal story. So you've kind of like foobarred it all by not understanding that it's a give and take. And I like how she kept mentioning that, and I like how she kept mentioning, and the Wendigo. That was one that I thought was really cool. The Wendigo story. I'm like, man, yep.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah. And I also like how she said at the end that she didn't know what to do. She didn't know. A lot of these books try to either offer no solution, just all these doomsday feelings and scenarios, and offer nothing up, or they try to find solutions and they're not really applicable to a lot of people. But she was just flat out like, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how we get to what she calls the eighth fire. I don't know. And I like that, and I appreciated that for her expertise, she's still hopeful, but doesn't know how it's going to happen. I appreciate
that she trusts that we have the ability to do it. Maybe the next generation. Mm-hmm. Anyways, her message about reciprocity really resonated with me, and just being grateful and giving back and being a steward of the land and the environment and the world, really, not just taking, because that's just so much of what we've been raised in. And that's the global north is just basically just takes and takes and accumulates and does whatever it wants, to hell with the rest of the world, human and non-human alike. Like, that message was just beautiful to me. And then on the flip side, I'm like, but people are selfish. They're not going to change. How do we get them to think this way and actually care about, where things come from and how much they're taking and using? And I don't know, just like her. Like,
Yeah.
it's a big question.
Yeah, how do you have that mind shift that we have to take care of each other and the earth, or, this is all going to go to shit. And we don't, and it is very ingrained in our society, and it is very ingrained. Because even when she was talking about how Indigenous people see gifts and where the term Indian giver came from, I was like, yeah, but gifts shouldn't come with and maybe I was interpreting it wrong, like with the expectations that something's going to come back to you. Mm-hmm. It should just be given freely, and you're just because you want to, because you can. But she's right. I mean, you give the gift, and eventually, through whatever gifts come back to you, it's not the same gift that you gave, but it's something. And just the whole taking care of each other, taking care of the land, and then taking pride in it too. That's the other thing, is taking pride in wanting to cultivate and take care and cherish, instead of just looking at it like it's all waste and just needs to be developed. She had a lot of good stories. I like the story of the three sisters. The what was the other one? How sweetgrass is important, and how it grows, and like how different communities harvest it differently, because everybody's got their own little thing that they do. And I just thought that those little stories, because here in Canada, we don't have the best history of how we've treated our Indigenous communities. We've just sort of come in and been like,
you need to be more like the U.S. and treat them.
We have, but my my big beef with it is that I didn't know any of this growing up. Nobody talked about it. We didn't learn about this in history class, none of it. And it wasn't until my kids started going to school and learning this in history that I started learning about it. And it was just like, you're telling me that the last residential school in Canada closed in 1996. That's what you're telling me. I had no clue, none of it. My dad told me a story of these two residential school children he knew that died because they were locked out of the school and froze to death. And I'm like, holy crap, Dad, you never told me that? And just how poorly we just treated them. And the reparations that we need to do. And Canada's tried. It's been a slow slog, though, and we're not even close. And we just, I don't know, we take it for granted, right? Like, and shove them on reserves. I've lived on a native reserve when I was a kid, and they're not great. They're not nice. They're in the middle of nowhere. We lived 8 hours north of a town called Thunder Bay, which is already in northern Ontario. And we lived 8 hours north. There were no paved roads. You had to take a plane to get anywhere. And that's where we lived. But that was a native reserve. My dad was a police officer up there. And, most of them are under boil water advisories. They open up their tap and it's just dirt that comes out, dirt water. And they've always been under boil water advisories. If that were to happen in a predominantly white community or a bigger city area, that would never. The Walkerton water tragedy is a good example of that. Contaminated water of a town of 5,000. It happened when Ray and I first started dating. It was, national, international news, and that got cleared up in just a couple of months. But these people have been living in, nothing short of squalor because it's land that nobody else wanted. So you stick them there, but they can't live off it because it's not meant to be lived in, because it's harsh and barren. And so we don't have a great relationship with that, but we're trying.
Yeah.
It's slow, but we're trying.
Yeah.
At least we were taught about the Trail of Tears and stuff, so.
Yeah.
It's like, look what bad things we did. At least we told you about it. Well, that's not much
great.
better, but.
Do about it, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to keep doing it, but.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like what she was talking about is that, because science is just, it's science, and we don't need anything else clouding the data and clouding the information. But if you don't have anything else you're putting it towards, what does it mean? It's just numbers and just facts. If you can't apply it to anything or there's no inspiration behind it, then what's it for?
Yeah.
You know? So I wish Thomas Berry was still alive, and then him and her can just talk and just like make things better. Because Thomas Berry he was an amazing man. He died in 2009, but he very much believed that science and spirituality had to combine to make it. Because
I've always wondered why people act like science has no place in religion or vice versa. Because it's like, what if like God was just a scientist? That this was all just one big petri dish for him, and he or she is just out there, like, let's see what happens if I do this. Like, we could have just been an experiment for the greatest scientist ever. Like, I don't know. I think that's a cool story.
Yeah,
it's no crazier than the stories out there.
The problem is some of them fly directly in the face of others. Of course, it also depends on how you look at it. Like, going back to not the Bobaverse,
Magic 2.0.
The Magic 2.0.
Yeah.
And I've kind of always thought that as an adult. It's like, 7 days. All right, cool. Was that daylight savings time? How long was a day back then?
Yeah.
Because your description of what happened in 7 days sounds like it took millions of years. And if there was no one back there to actually write it down, my other thing was, and I've always said this, I'm like, you can't go back in time and show someone, an iPhone and not basically explain it as a magic rock. They cannot comprehend it. So how do you explain to a really old, more primitive human beings the concept of millions of years? It's not going to work. 7 days. You can comprehend 7 days. So there you go.
Yeah, a day on Earth is longer or different length than a day on Mars or Jupiter or any other planet. So that's another thing, like.
Yeah, I've always thought, well,
did the planet turn back then?
Yeah, if this is the actual word of God, it was probably dumbed down a little bit. Just saying. So, plus there was a lot of editing going on by.
Yeah, you had a lot of translation and.
Yeah. I got to go back to the pond real quick. That was something that drove me insane. I was just like. Especially when she explained the fact that she didn't get it cleaned up and to the point she wanted it until after her kids were like gone. And I'm just like, did you not have any friends or any volunteers? There was no one to help you do this? But I'm like, is it just one of those things that's like, no, I'm going to do this. This is my project. I want this. This is going to be me. I'm going to be able to look back at this and say, I did all of this.
It sounded like it was relaxing for her too. Like,
and maybe it was.
In some way.
Yeah, definitely not on my radar of relaxing things, but it was just one of those things. I'm just like, you realize, like, if you had just like gotten a day and got like maybe 5 or 10 people to help you out, like you would have like cut years off of this process. Because what she could get done in the amount of time, I'm sure, was basically like 1 step forward, 3 steps back, and she just slowly was making, sometimes you have to have big progress. Anyway, that was one of the things that
every time you walk away, more comes back.
More comes back, exactly, yeah. Especially when it's water. Stuff with water, is always like that. Like the Canadians understand right now with water. So, okay, so I've heard y'all talk about reading books, and you listen to it, and you just like, wow, this is depressing. This just makes me feel like there's no hope at all. And I got that about halfway through this book. There were 2 things that I didn't care for the book. Number 1, I did get that feeling. Because you start going down. The one thing trying to trigger the other. I'll talk about the other. The one it was like, okay, well, if we do this, but then, all right, so if we change, am I doing enough? Because like you're talking about having to drive a bunch of places. Well, then should you not be driving? Should you just be staying there? But then if you do that, and it's it's that spiral you go down that y'all said y'all been on. Yeah. So, but yeah, because it's like, okay, so you wrote a book to get information out. That's great, but trees were cut down and it's been shipped by Amazon, and what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of stuff you could look at it, and it brings me back to not trying to give anything away for it, but The Good Place. Later on in that series, if you haven't watched The Good Place, just fast forward like 30 seconds or a minute. But later on in the series, they come to find out no one can go to heaven because no matter what you do, it's harmful.
Yeah.
It harms someone some way. And
Yep.
it kind of felt like that. And I was just like, all right, I got to shake this off.
Mhm.
I was also kind of wondering when this book was released and stuff, and it hadn't been too long ago. It was like 2018, 2019, so it's fairly new.
Mhm.
But like I think what started was when she was talking about how certain things don't feel like there's a life to them, and wood, plants. Um, I don't remember where she came down on metals, but you can feel quote unquote the life in them, and plastics you don't feel that way. Probably didn't help that at the time I was 3D printing stuff. But she brought it, and it was kind of a hard stance of plastics are bad, and I'm very gray on that because most of the stuff that I make with plastics are made out of corn. Now, we could also debate how great that is because I'm sure it's corn that, like she was talking about, has been genetically altered to never reproduce. They're just making it and basically destroying fields and sucking the life out of the ground or whatever. So there's definitely it's definitely not a high road on that I'm on. But anyway, but it's like I also understand that there are things that are made out of plastics like electric vehicles. There's a lot of plastics in them, and if they were all metal, they'd be so freaking heavy. You couldn't use it as an electric vehicle. So it's trying to find that balance. And
this is a great time to plug the latest episode of Sustainably Geeky, which will be coming out soon, all about plastic.
oh, nice, okay.
But it does actually talk about, like, there are actually good plastics. We just need to stop using them for everything. Like, plastic does not need to be made for disposable forks and wrap and cling wrap. Like, there are things we can use other materials for, or just stop using them and use the plastic for, like, life-saving medical equipment and transportation, like you said.
Well, like the thing I was showing y'all, that 3D printed, the new prop for my Ghostbusters, outfit or whatever. It's 3D printed out of plastic. This plastic actually is an oil based. It's a more traditional type plastic. It's a hard plastic. Unless it gets crushed, it's going to be around forever, and that's what I want it for. This is an ideal use for it. But like you said, Jen, plastic forks, plastic bags, stuff that's disposable. Yeah, we need to get away from that. Absolutely. That's why I say I come down as a gray area for it.
Yeah, that will also be around forever. That's the problem because people use it because they're lazy, because it's convenient, and don't think about the long-term costs. So, plastic, has a place. The laptop I'm recording this on is plastic, and the soles of my shoes or whatever, probably everything we have now has some kind of plastic in it, but like we could survive without it 50, 60, 70 years ago. So we need to, I'm not saying we need to go back to those times. Obviously, like we have to keep progressing, but we could make some, changes or compromises and realize like also we're going to run out of oil to make the plastic someday. We're going to run out of glass to make the sand, or sand to make the glass, and metal. We're going to run out of everything someday, even the land to grow some of the stuff that we're using, so like I think that was the overall message, is like be smarter about it. But I totally get what you mean. Like it's everything we do has a footprint and a problem, and it's what's the lesser of two evils, I guess.
And I guess mid book is when it kind of gets to that point before we start wrapping back around to the fact that I do like the overall idea of balance. And it's like, it is the balance between science and, culture and I don't want to say mythology, but you know what I'm talking about. And it's, it has a place there. We can find a balance between, the different things. It doesn't, being the older I get, the more stark, hardcore one way or the other. Doesn't matter which way it leans. I'm like, no, that's bad. We got to find balance. But at midpoint in the book, it it definitely seems where it's like, some kind of hard lines are drawn, and it's just like, I don't know about this. And then, like I said, I start getting on that spiral, and it's just like, one of the things I'm going to throw out there real quick. I do like the story she gave about the Wendigo. Once again, a different version that I'd originally heard. One of the first versions of the Wendigo story I'd ever heard was, oddly enough, in one of Stephen King's books, in Pet Cemetery. When when they go to walk towards where the cemetery is that brings things back to life, there's a in this version, and I don't remember which culture he said it was from. Their version is that Wendigo is this giant creature that just it eats all life that it comes across. So yes, very much kind of like she was talking, but like I said, this is a giant version. So having it more of an idea of being, um, her telling is very much zombies, like the fact that you eat flesh and then you become hungry for flesh and you don't stop, like that's your entire purpose. And the whole time I was thinking, wow, that's their zombie origin story essentially. So uh not that I ever have the time for it, but it's one of those things I've always been interested in, like how many cultures have like vampire stories, zombie story. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems
Yeah.
like there's these key things that we all kind of pull into, which would be
To
nice
explain
because
different.
then we could all say, "Hey, look, everyone wants to say we're different, but we kind of all have the same ideas." So either maybe something really happened at one point, or we all have the same ideas,
We all
maybe
think
not so
we're gonna
different.
die in this terrible, gruesome way. Isn't that
Yeah.
great?
So but those were kind of the big things. Like I said, I did kind of hit one of those spirals like y'all were talking about and kind of pulled out. I was just like, all right, well, that was horrible. I, and I agree with you. And at the end, the fact she didn't have an answer, and part of me was like, well, I'd kind of like something. But on the other hand, I also understand, like you're saying, because it's like, a lot of times things people throw out there are half baked, or just is like, humans don't like the world doesn't work that way. Um, so it might have been a little nicer if maybe it was at least some words, kind of encouragement. I told you all about a book that I read a couple months ago, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And literally, if the book there was a revision to it, literally, if the book had just ended where it was just like, all right, great, we're all horrible people, we're all going to die. This is just great, fantastic. And then at the end, it's like, no, this is how we could try to improve things, and that was the only thing that made me hopeful about that book. Um, so I will say I kind of wish maybe there was a little something there, but I understand why there wasn't. So,
Mhm.
anything
Well,
else that stood out?
she's got another book coming out next year, so maybe that'll be more
Well, there
Yeah,
you go.
maybe it's a
of it.
follow-up.
I don't know what it's about yet, but
Yeah.
It'd be nice if maybe it would be, after this one came out, people reached out to me and this is what we think. Like
mhm.
maybe it's a game plan.
Mhm.
So
maybe the message, her uh what we can do though is just try to be more mindful and take the lessons from her book, to heart and live more mindfully with reciprocity, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I know that kind of goes back to individual action versus collective action, but um there's still something that to be said about like changing, hearts and minds a little at a time, and then eventually it reaches a tipping point to where that's just how it is, hopefully.
hopefully,
Hopefully all of society feels this way and we start to move the needle.
yeah.
Takes so long though.
Yeah, it does. And unfortunately, not that it's a scapegoat or thought process of, well, if everyone would do this, it's like, I keep hearing more and more stuff. It's like, yeah, if everyone would recycle and do this, that, and the other, we would make about a 5% dent. And I'm just like, that's fucking it. It's like,
Mhm.
oh no, we have to go after the top 5 companies that are doing this shit. And like, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, let's try to start working towards that. But yeah, it just, not that I'm saying I'm tired of hearing the what every individual can do. I really want to start seeing more people being like, listen, you know, keep recycling. Good job. Maybe we should fucking do something about these businesses.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it definitely needs to come at a macro level. It definitely needs to be laws and regulations and changes to, you know, how businesses run and et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, to a certain extent, some of that could be consumer behavior. We can stop buying from certain companies for sure, and we can put our money or where our mouth is. But yeah, a lot of it, like you can boycott Nike or whoever for their labor practices, but ultimately, like if you really want to see it across the board, pass a fucking regulation and enforce it. Don't let
yeah,
the lobbyists and the political shit get in the way.
yeah.
I don't know.
So, but anyway, so overall, yes, I did enjoy the book. Like I said, there was kind of a spiral there in the middle, but um, I'm glad I read it regardless. So, is there anything else? Oh, go on.
Well, I found myself, and I'm not a parent, but I was very touched by a lot of her stories about having kids, and like when she talked about her daughters going off and the things she went through, I thought that was like very poignant. As parents, how did you guys like, did you relate to some of that, or were you like, oh, I'm not there yet, so.
I'm not there quite yet. You're getting close.
I'm getting close. My daughter's 16. Yeah, she's got 2 more years at home before she toddles off to the world of post-secondary education. Yeah, they joke. Logan was joking with me that I'm a crunchy mom. I'm like, no, it could be worse. It could be so much worse. I could really go down the rabbit hole if your dad let me. Really good. But he's sitting there shaking his head no. But it's just me trying to, as a parent, you're just trying to make them into good humans. You're just trying to give them all your best stuff, all your life lessons, because you have the gift of hindsight, right? Like you can look back and see all your mistakes you're making. So you can give them all this worldly advice. Most of it just goes in and out of the other. They're not listening. Some of it gets stuck and it stays. But with Logan and Quinn, it's just like, all I want them to know is, you can have what you want, just don't take more than you need. Like not everything, you don't need a lot of stuff to be happy. You don't need a whole lot. It's more about who you're with than anything else. And when she was talking about her daughters, it was a story of her dropping off her daughter and then coming home to an empty house. And I'm like, oh my God, that's gonna be me.
Yeah, but you'll have Ray there.
She was a single mom, though. That was the other thing. Like, she was by herself.
That would be devastating.
Yeah. So to come home and it's the quiet. I like things quiet, but that's like a level of quiet I don't think you're ever really prepared for.
Well, that's my everyday, but I get it.
When
like
you're
when
so
you're used to 18
noise,
years of,
right,
20
when you're used to noise and puttering around and like footsteps and murmurs and stuff like that in different rooms, and all of a sudden it's not there anymore. It's going to be very jarring. But I just hope with Logan, like I know there's going to be rebellion. I know she's going to have that period of time where it's just going to be like, I'm doing everything mom didn't do. And then it'll come
hopefully
back and she'll do a few things. I'm not expecting everything. There'll be things that I did that I'll see when she grows up. And I hope I don't point them out. I'll be like, oh, I used to do that too, because then that's a good recipe for her to stop doing it.
No, but then when when you've reached that point where you're like, oh my God, this is what my mom used to do. I'm acting just like her. Like you look in the mirror and you're like, fuck.
I already look enough like my mother. I don't need any more of that.
I used to make fun of her for this, and I'm doing the exact same thing.
Who is it who has the commercials right now? I see them from time to time. Where it's the guy, he's got a mustache and he's helping people to not become their parents.
Oh yeah.
That hit. The reason why those commercials hit so hard is because everyone's just like, oh shit, yeah. You're right.
We get
yeah. Okay, so something you were talking about, you brought this up, Chris, and made me think about it. Part of this, the whole not taking more than what you want, what you need, but also just caring for the planet and everything else. A lot of that, I think, I mean, granted, there are people, Jennifer, that it hits early, and without the other impactors. But a lot of that, I feel, comes from A, just getting older, but also B, like also having kids, like, because I mean, granted, it was also the time of my life, but that's when I was like, okay, I gotta get my shit together because I've got two more little people depending on me. And so I think a lot of people start hitting that later on in life, especially when they start thinking about the world they're going to leave for their kids. It is an abstract thought. It's one thing when there's a little person sitting there and you're like, yeah, I want you to be able to breathe when you get 20 and 30. That would be nice. I think some of that hits, but like the not taking, I understand. I mean, granted, I've got, a collection of different things or whatever, but I find it harder and harder to spend money on stuff that's just going to sit there.
Yeah.
But also, I find, like, if you were to look at just my Amazon purchases or whatever, most of it is for tools or materials for me to make things, usually a lot of times for other people. But it's like, yeah, I could buy all this stuff, but I don't really want it. Like,
Yeah.
I have found that the older I get, the time. Of course, that's when I was halfway joking when people ask, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "Time. I want time with my friends. That's what I really want."
Well, you got me for a
I
little bit.
did get you for a minute, yeah. But no, seriously, like that's. I think a lot of that. Hopefully, I'm sure it doesn't with everybody. Hopefully, comes with age and everything
Mhm.
else. But yeah,
I don't know though. I worry though because like Amazon and online ordering has made it so easy for people to be more consumerist, you
Yeah.
know. You hear people joke about, oh, the Amazon guy knows me by name and I'm going to this sale and that sale and it's just like, oh, but no, you don't need it. Stop. And so like I worry like we're almost regressing in that like you're probably one of the exceptions. I don't know. I
And
hope
see,
I'm
I
not.
you're right. It does make it super easy. On the other hand, like I've gotten to the point that if I have to go find some, shop somewhere, I hate doing it with a passion and I do think about the fact that most of the time, if I get it from Amazon, there's enough information there. I can order it and be pretty certain it's what I want. Whereas
But Jeff
if I'm like, all
Bezos
right,
is first.
yeah, but like if I have to go to Lowe's, I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
well, I have to go get in a car. So that's at least 20 minutes of gas I'm burning, because my vehicle does still use gas. I mean, if it was electric, it'd be a little bit different animal, but I'm spending that much time putting carbon into the air. I'm walking around. I may or may not find what I need there. And then I have to make another trip to somewhere else, or then I have to do something else. And I don't know. I'm sure one way or
Yeah.
the other it's gonna be bad. I have a feeling the people who are just ordering stuff to order stuff because it's there probably are the same people that went to the mall and just went shop to
Yes.
shop and just bought
Yeah.
stuff regardless.
Yeah,
I don't
that's exactly what it is. They were going to buy it regardless of how they were going to get it, right? Whether
right.
it's
And I
online
think
or going shopping. Yeah.
yeah, maybe it makes it a little easier. Maybe it's a little better the fact that it's one truck going to their house instead of multiple trucks going to, the mall, another intermediary, a mediary place, and
Mhm.
then them driving there. I don't know. Once again, now we're going to that spiral of, boy, was this
What's
better or is
worse?
this better? Or yeah,
Yeah,
so
and that's
Hey,
the problem. It's because you could make it bad
an
or worse
argument.
for anything, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
So the best activists and the best people in the environmental movement or whatever that I resonate with and that I like and can be inspired by are those people who meet you where you are, who aren't trying to force anything down your throat or shame you for what you're doing. They're just being like, okay, you're here. Cool. That's fantastic. And go from there. And they're not
Process.
interested in making you feel bad or guilt or anything like that. They're just happy that you're there. And I think that was a those are the big ones that sit with me, are the ones that aren't trying to guilt you or aren't trying to scare you, or they're just trying to meet you where you are and work with who you are as a person in your family and where you live in the world and what kind of economic level you're at or and things like that. So those are the ones
Well,
that stick with me.
and just being aware of it, I think, is a
Yeah,
key.
just
Like a lot of
that's
people just do it, but
mindless.
you're at least thinking about the
Yeah, you think,
impact
yeah, that's
you're
huge.
having, and like, okay, I'm gonna buy this from Amazon, but I'll consolidate and get everything in
Yeah.
one weekly delivery or something like they offer now, or ask for no plastic, or at least
Hmm.
work your way up to the next thing and the next thing or whatever. But I will say one of the best ways to not shop online or through Amazon is to live in a country that you can't get most of the stuff you need easily. And if you get them mailed, you have to pay a tax on it. So you just don't buy anything that has to come in the mail.
There
Let me
you
tell you,
go.
this week, I was shipping
It
something
works.
out to I was shipping a thing that I make from my Etsy store to someone in England, and I was like, it doesn't seem like I made a lot of money on this. Let me check this. I was charging $30 in shipping. Yeah, shipping's gone up to 40.
Ooh,
The
yeah.
Ooh.
thing they bought was only $20, and I'm just
Yeah.
Ooh.
like why? I mean, I understand we do
Shit.
need to tax gas and stuff like that, but part of me is just like, really? Like, that was not a gas related thing. That was someone was like, no, we're going to start charging more money because it headed over a border. And I'm just like, fuck all y'all. So anyway.
But that is like a convenient thing for you, Jen, that, can't get it. I can't buy it.
Yeah.
Yep, can't find it anywhere, and I'm not paying all that money for,
No.
that tax.
Yeah.
That's what
Not
I
worth
would
it.
with shipping too, is because it's so expensive in Canada to ship
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, I personally don't like online shopping because I'm one of those people who I need to see it.
Yeah, I
need
do
to
too.
feel it. I need to
Try it on.
I have to try it on. I have a specific body type. I need to know. And so it's one of those things where I will physically go. We have an electric car, so we've had it for almost a year now, and we love it. This is our first winter with it, which definitely changes the mileage. But Logan's 16. Logan's got a job. What responsibility does a 16-year-old have? Not a whole lot. She's saving for school, but she likes to shop.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to that's the other thing too, is that when you're a parent and you make things taboo, it's like, why is
They
it
want to do it more.
why is it so bad? And then when they get out on their own, they're going to do all the shit you told them not to do because you like forced upon them. If you look at look at the Ducker girls, all of them now have all chopped their hair off. Some of them wear pants. They like on birth control because she doesn't want any more kids. It's like, if you make something so taboo that it becomes like blasphemous almost if you even mention it, as soon as they get out on their own, they're going to do it. So now it's like, okay, I have to let her experience the shopping. Got to let her go out there, do her retail therapy, whatever you want to call it, so that when she is out on her own and she does have her own bills to pay, she's like, okay, I do like doing this. However, I have this to pay for, this, pay for this.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe instead of a big shop, she only does like one little thing or whatever, because she knows she's got other responsibilities first. And we haven't made it like that big taboo thing. And we've also made it a big thing in our house to shop, especially for furniture.
Used. Yeah.
Yeah. We tell them, like, I bring them to all the restores and stuff and the thrift stores. I'm like, see, look at this, a perfectly good piece of, it's $10. You can't even get the wood for that. We got our wardrobe
Oh, girl.
for $100. It was solid oak.
I have, like almost everything I got that I didn't bring with me that I, needed when I got here was secondhand if I could find it.
And there's no shame in it, right? Like, there's no shame in buying something that somebody else doesn't have use for anymore. For me growing up, there was a lot of shame in it.
Oh, yeah.
Because we grew up in a specific kind of economic tax bracket.
Yeah.
And there was shame in that. It meant that already we can't afford stuff, but this was already another kick in the face, right? Like, we can't afford anything new. So I didn't do secondhand for the longest time, especially with the kids. It was like, I'm not buying them secondhand anything. And now it's just like, oh, I wasted so much money. Because there's so little for such a short amount of time that half the stuff they wore, they might have worn it once. You know that, Eugene. Like, you think that they're going to wear it, and then, like, first of all, they have a growth spurt you didn't expect, and they didn't wear it at all.
Or they poop through it.
Or that, and they ruined it. Or you have nobody else to give it to. Like with my kids, they've got 2 older cousins, but Logan and her older cousin are completely different body types. Like, our niece is like 5'1" if she's lucky, and Logan's 5'8", and at no time did their clothes ever. She couldn't give her any hand-me-downs. Mm-hmm. So, and with my nieces, they're 5-6 years younger than Logan. So by the time it got to them, they don't want it, or it's out of anyway. So, baby clothes and kids clothes, and I feel like somebody sitting in a CEO office is just laughing at all of his parents because they're making bank, especially on those stupid freak. We bought Quinn a pair of Etnies when he was 2, and I knew it. They were $30 for a 2-year-old. Stupid. They looked so cute on him. He wore them for 2 months before his feet grew out of them. I still have them. No other kid was ever going to wear them, but spending $30 on a pair of shoes my 2-year-old was going to wear for like 5 minutes seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, it not really has anything to do. But you just said that there was a TikTok that I sent Christy it was this woman basically just going on there telling all mothers, go buy just if you've got a young teenage boy, go buy all of your hoodies at second-hand stores.
Yeah.
Because they're inevitably going to give them to a girl that you're probably not going to never see again.
I saw that TikTok
$60.
Yeah.
$60 gone, and I'll never see this girl again. And I was just like, that's a smart woman.
Yep. I saw that TikTok. I'm like, yep, that's exactly what's going to. Well, Logan already steals Ray's hoodies. They're gone. He's not getting them back.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, is there anything else from the book that we want to? We're gonna have to do an episode on geeky parenting sometime, like on Epically Geeky. We're just gonna have to like get on and just like, bleh. So, it's one of those topics I've always thought about, and we just haven't gotten around to it. Anyway,
we should definitely do that. I'm on board for sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else that in particular about the book that stood out? I know we kind of rambled and stuff, but it's also. It's one of those books, it's kind of hard to discuss. Like, you can kind of give people the general gist of the book, but then you really just kind of have to read it to get anything from it. So,
no, I think we covered it all. If you want to be inspired by, a kind of a different view on science and indigenous knowledge, this is the book to start with. It's a good book to start with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. If you're interested in knowing more about indigenous science and how it can relate to mainstream science in terms of plants and the ecosystems and stuff, definitely a very good place to start for sure. Yeah. She's a wealth of knowledge.
And it's, she does talk about how, we are starting to finally go back and start looking at nature on some things. It's just like, well, how did they used to use a medicine for this? Or how can we pull this? And I mean, going once again to hard science, especially when we're designing things, it's like, well, how can we design something? Well, why don't we just design it like nature did it?
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. How much evolution?
Bird's wing is pretty much pretty well perfected at this point. Why aren't we just like copying that? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is pretty much our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. Our next book is. I think it was Ray's pick. Did Ray pick this?
Sean.
Or is Sean?
Yeah.
Okay. Sean is going to attempt to go ahead and get us to go down a rabbit hole. There are certain books that people on this group have recommended, and they've become a hit with pretty much everyone. This was one of his. Like, he knocked it out of the park with this one.
Oh, yeah.
Next month's book is Quarter Share by Nathan Lowell. It is I think technically the main storyline is 6 books. I think there's an additional 3, and then there's like 2 or 3 other ones that can tie into it. Like, it's a lot, but it's
universe.
It's really good, and once you meet the main character, you'll understand why.
It's sci-fi.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but not like hard sci-fi. It's like I like it.
It is also a lot of what I like to refer to as oh my God, what was my term for it?
Resource management porn.
Resource management porn. Yes, it is, because they literally talk about, well, if we did this, we could do that. And I don't know why that should be the most boring topic ever, but you're just like, I'm really interested to find out, how are they going to do this?
Oh, yeah,
there's spreadsheets, Eugene? Okay.
Maybe.
Then I gotta listen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
No wonder Eugene likes it.
Shut up. Anyway, so next month we are reading Quarter Share by Nathan Lowell, and then March we are reading your choice, right?
Yes.
Chris? New Spring by Robert Jordan. So if you want to read along with us, that's our next couple of books. As always, you can find us at epicallygeeky.com. There you can find all the links to the different shows we do, including Epically Geeky, Sustainably Geeky, and Creatively Geeky. You can find us on all the social media at Epically Geeky as well. Apparently some of the other places that you listen to podcasts have started doing ratings, or where you can leave reviews. If you would, please give us a review or a rating. It does help apparently get the message out there. Looking at our numbers, all of a sudden this last week, things kind of jumped back up again. Since COVID started, things have been just kind of grinding to a halt. And I don't know if more people are going back to work. I don't know if people are rediscovering stuff. I don't know what's happening. It's just a good thing. So if you do listen to the show, if nothing else, tell a friend about it. Tell them, hey, there's the show where they talk about
Bunch of
geeky books,
nerds.
and it's not just
Yeah.
it's not just science fiction. We cover fantasy, we cover fiction. You know,
Lots of stuff.
we're
Environment.
geeky about the book.
Wow.
So there you go. Where can we find you online, Jen?
Well, once or twice a year, you can find me here now that I live 6 hours away. You can find me consistently on Sustainably Geeky still, and as I've mentioned, the newest episode should be dropping around the same time as this one. And then otherwise, I'm on all of the social medias at Het's Gonna Be Me.
Chris, where can we find you online?
You can find me at all the shows you mentioned and on Instagram at Rose and Hummingbird. We're also going to be doing a big kitchen reno, and I'll be doing that on my private account at Victorian Botanical. So maybe, hit me up for a request. We'll see.
Good deal. Yeah. And as always, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.